in that we were led to believe that West Ham United had bid 50 million plus add-ons for a second time. They'd bid not once but twice for Calvin Phillips of Leeds United. And then last night, Alex, you and I watched as a lot of the messages came in from West Ham. We are not in any way going down that road. We do not expect West Ham to do any business. Is that fair? A lot of them were saying, we're not getting taken in by this. So, Simon, are we right to say it, to point the finger at the West Ham board this morning and say, the fans are fed up with this we tried agenda? Because that's exactly, Simon, what you think it was, don't you?
Well, I mean, I spoke specifically about David Sullivan and my experiences of David going back a long time. And the Calvin Phillips transaction seems to me to be in that territory of batting your eyelid at something without the real intention of asking it out on a date. You know, from my vantage point, there was never really any transaction that Leeds were looking to do with Calvin Phillips. So it seems like you might as well just offer whatever you feel like for whichever play you felt like it and then find its way into the media. The flip side of the argument is now that West Ham is not just David Gold and David Sullivan. They've had a significant financial investment from the guy that I think will ultimately end up owning the football club. He has a voice in this transaction.
Kretinsky, yeah.
He has a voice in this transaction. On top of that, you have a voice from David Moyes that you would think, despite the fact that, you know, I do understand that managers may well toe the line, but they are also more than capable of stirring the pot as well about what they think they're entitled to and what they not think they're entitled to. We know, without backtracking from what I said yesterday, because I do believe that David Sullivan, you know, advertises. His advertising is great, but his product ain't so dandy at times. And I do believe that he'll use certain leverageable items to make himself look better. And I gave you an example specific to Crystal Palace, myself and him. But the problem for Sullivan and Gold is the moment they go off script from the West Ham fans, the GSB out mob, the moment they don't do something, it's just going to go back to what it is that they thought before.
Yeah.
And to some extent they deserve it, because there is an element, if you look at West Ham and say, you do have an opportunity. Do I think West Ham are going to finish in the Champions League spots? I don't think they are. But you do have an opportunity to look like you're going to get to that point. So when were you going to back your team? Because I don't think West Ham are going to be a continual challenger for the top four, unless they can get into the top four, generate the wealth, and continue to spend in a particular spending pattern that's going to keep them there. So I go to the point of what you've asked me. Do I think they were dialing
Were they kind of showboating a bit?
Yeah, I think they're showboating a little bit.
So it's all the board's fault? Nobody over the line yesterday?
Well, yes it is, and no it's not, because David Moyes has got a mouth. If he needs a player and he needs an opportunity, then I would expect David to say it. I don't expect him to back channel his owners and go through the media and do a backdoor to someone like Jeff Powell or someone like the Venables used to do back in the day and make sure that everyone knew what their opinion was without it being attributed to them.
Yeah.
But I do expect David Moyes to be on the front foot, communicating with the fans, and it's a difficult one, because if he's not, there is an element of, do the West Ham fans believe that David Moyes is a puppet? Because I think his currency is pretty high. So if they don't believe he's a puppet and he's not expressing a problem, why do they have a problem on his behalf?
So you come in on this, Alex.
Yeah.
And I can only say what I was told yesterday. I was told by the top of the house, and there's no degree of naivety on my part, that 50 million plus add-ons had been bid for Calvin Phillips. And you just have to accept that, or do you?
I think there's two facets to this. The proof when it comes to Calvin Phillips, if they're serious about signing him, they'll go back in the summer with another offer. So whether it was just smoke and mirrors at the end of a transfer window, that will come out by their actions in the summer. The second point to that story is, if they're looking for Calvin Phillips, that suggests to me they're paving the way for the departure of Declan Rice. And I fully expect Declan Rice to leave West Ham next summer, because I think he wants to be playing in the Champions League. If you look at his post-match interviews, not just because he said he loves playing at Old Trafford, he is already suggesting that maybe the club's ambitions don't match his own. So that's one side of the story. The other side is the point that Simon is making about David Moyes. He certainly isn't a puppet, and his stock is high at West Ham. I was told quite early in the window there is money for David Moyes to spend. He wanted a striker and a central defender. But he decided that actually the options on the table, the viable options, of which Calvin Phillips was never a viable option, nor was Darwin Núñez, by the way. I know Brighton tried to sign him last summer. That's a nightmare deal to get done. It was never going to happen on deadline day. So the live options that were presented to him, he decided wouldn't improve the West Ham squad. So ultimately, David Moyes vetoed any new arrivals.
So Moyes was being told, look, we are prepared to go out there and buy X and Y.
Yeah.
But he was saying himself, not for me at this particular time in the proceedings.
Because if you look at West Ham as a case study, the way they've conducted themselves over the last few years, they did fall into the trap under Pellegrini of buying the wrong players. I'll use that word again that I use about Newcastle, characters. and they made some bad decisions. It upset the apple cart in the dressing room. What David Moyes has done very well is recruit the right type of personality with the two Czech Republic lads, with the players that he's brought in like Jarrod Bowen from the EFL.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have signed anybody this month to upset the harmony, because let's face it, the reason that West Ham are punching above their weight, and they are when you look at net spend compared to the clubs they're competing with for the top four,
Sure.
is because of that character and the way that David Moyes has galvanised that squad.
So they backed themselves into a corner, Sullivan and Gold, because they opened their mouths when they made the move from the transfer from the Boleyn to the Taxpayer Stadium, and suggested they were going to put the club inside the top 4, top 6. Then they went and bought a low-ranking sort of players. So then they got backed into a corner. The vilification piled on. The loans that they were putting into the business that they were taking back with interest. The stadium not being fit for purpose. So then they backed the wrong horse. They decided that, oh, geez, Louise, we better get off the, peel, get off the pot. So we're going to bring Pellegrini in, who was done. We're going to take him back from China, because he wasn't going out there for a pension. We need to give him a pension here. We're going to take him back from China. We're going to put him in situ, and then we're going to buy Felipe Anderson for 40 million quid. We've got no backbone.
Which was a huge mistake.
And they went strong at that time. And of course, then they sat there with scar tissue, because they went strong with about 80, 90 million pounds of players in a quick order in that season, and they were not great. And I think it scarred them going forward. But now you look at it and say, to Alex's point, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if I say something derogatory about West Ham and David Sullivan, David Gold, I will get a pile-on of support from certain segments of the West Ham fan base. If I now try to put some balance in it and nuance it, which Alex and I have just done, that will then suppress the interest from the West Ham fans, and I'll be back to being Jordan the arsehole.
The other stick that they will be using...
Well, certainly not that.
The other stick they'll be using to beat West Ham is the form of Sebastian Haller at Ajax. Now,
I thought he was a good player, I did.
But you're rewriting history, because nobody at West Ham, none of the fans complained when they sold him, because they didn't think his attitude was right. I think there was a talented player there, maybe not in the Premier
But
League.
they moaned about the fact that they had to sell him to go and buy Syed Benrahma. They wanted them to buy Syed Benrahma with their own money, rather than with selling Sebastian Haller to get the financing in place.
But what we should not forget in this situation is a glance at the league table says, for the second successive season, they're battling for a place in Europe.
And that's an incredible achievement when you look at the clubs they're up against, the real powerhouses of the Premier League, and that's largely thanks to David Moyes and a sensible recruitment policy.
And his coaching staff.
Yeah.
And the board.
So there's a message, say, from Mick. I'll pick one at random. I don't speak for all, but I'm angry that we didn't try to consolidate, let alone push on. We've missed a real opportunity in this window. What you would say to that, Alex, is, look, the board would have been happy to spend money had Moyes identified targets.
That's what I've been told. And I have no reason to doubt that information. What I don't understand is why they were then going for unrealistic targets at the end of the window, other than to conjure up this smoke and mirrors scenario where actually, look, we mean business. It's not our fault that we can't get Calvin Phillips.
And what you would say, Simon, is why go for Calvin Phillips when you've never got the snowball's chance in hell of getting him?
You've got no chance of getting him, so it was posturing, it was playing to the gallery. The alternate argument also for West Ham fans, and they're right to have it, is they can see an opportunity, and that opportunity needs to be invested in. Tragically, if you own a football club, you have to keep on investing. If David want to do it, getting Harrods returns in pound spending brackets, they're going to come short again, and West Ham will decline again, because ultimately they've got to keep push. You can't keep buying Jarrod Bowen for 17 million off Hull and getting nuggets like that, and you can't get Dimitri Payet out of every opportunity. You're going to have to invest in ultimately a goal scorer alongside, because Mikel Antonio has worked the oracle for them. You look at it and say they need more, and it's probably right for them to ask for more. But they also, West Ham fans have got context, because their side is doing really well, and Moyes doesn't seem to have much of a problem with it. So
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.